100 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly
else.
swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy logic.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that
like a man.
the creature moved would not be unnatural.
You've had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in
just
its own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it was standing out there. I'm out here looking through the window down on Mercedes
She
and I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at
Jesus
was
Christ,
pure
you better.
evil.
Sure. See ya.
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9" up.
Do you
Many
see
of the
him now,
cases of
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr.
Is
Matt's
he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who
he's
says
gone.
she
He's
has
big.
been
Faded out.
since childhood.
Reality is, I was just
what I remember
being brought up this tunnel of light, right?
being
Out
around my
of
bed.
this tunnel, I
And I
just
ran between them
noticed
and ran
parts
out
of my
of
life
the
that
room
wouldn't
to
even
my
occur to me to
mother's
remember.
hide
Then I
from
knew that I
And
wasn't
I
being
never
my
told
mom,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried it
close to
in
death.
the back
And
of
so
my
then I
mind.
came to the end of this
My
tunnel
brother, he
and
never
noticed
spoke
there
about
was
it.
a man that first
I
touched me
noticed
at first as
a
a place
mist or a
and
fog
I
kind
also
of
saw
moving.
relatives that had
The
died
action, the
that
motion
year.
caught my eye.
Then
It actually
the wizard,
started
without
taking
moving his
shape,
mouth,
taking
spoke to me and
form.
said,
The
"Struggle,
idea
you're
of the
too
Grim
young to
Reaper
die."
went through my head, cloaked
Go back.
figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. Like it knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what. But this feeling of terror.
Hey everyone, and welcome to
through me.
Real
And I
Supernatural
really felt
Encounters.
more
For
that
my
it was
guest today, I
demonic
have
or
John.
something very
He
evil.
was on another YouTube channel called Jeff Morrow's podcast, and that's where I found him. And he had the most interesting NDE I've ever heard. So I was hoping he would come on and tell a story, and luckily he decided he was going to do that. So I'm happy to have you on. And if you could, would you give a brief bio about yourself?
Sure, Anthony. I just want to say this is awesome. I want to say thank you so much for inviting me on. It is a great pleasure to be on your show, and I hope that your audience gets a lot of value out of what happened to me in my experience. My name is John. I'm 56. I have a wife and 2 boys. My experience happened when I was 21. And ever since I had that experience, I have been sharing it to people as often and as much as I could, because I was kind of told that I was supposed to share the story with anybody who would listen. And I can tell you where that came from later on. But that's a short bio really about me.
Okay. All right. Well, John, if you're ready, man, go ahead and start with your NDE and then, tell your story and anything else that's supernatural, paranormal, and let me know when you're done.
Sure. Okay, sure. No problem. Okay. Well, my experience started when I was riding a moped or a scooter. I was going to the store and I made a right turn, and there was a squirrel right in the middle of the road. So when I tried to avoid the squirrel turned the same way I was turning, and I crashed into a tree. Well, I landed in such a way that I broke my hand, and I had to have tendons replaced or reattached to the bone. So it was no big deal. It was going to be a simple surgery. So I go in. I've never had surgery before. I was only 21. Didn't know what to expect. So I'm in the operating room the day of the surgery, and they tell me that they're going to give me the anesthesia to put me to sleep so they can do the surgery. Well, when I was going in for surgery in the hospital, I had never had surgery before. So I didn't really know what to expect. I wasn't really worried or concerned about anything. They were a great staff, just told me to lay back and relax. So I'm laying down, and when they gave me the anesthesia, I had some kind of a horrible reaction to it, and it stopped my heart. And it stopped my heart for approximately 7 minutes. So I was clinically dead for 7 minutes. And something remarkable happened after that, during that 7 minutes when I was dead. As soon as I died, and I didn't know at the time, I didn't know this until after I had the experience, but I woke up and I thought that the anesthesia didn't work. And I woke up and I was in this building that was the largest building I had ever seen. It was made of marble. It was absolutely beautiful. It was a long corridor, just a long, long building. And as far down as I could see, there was no end in sight. It just went on and on, like miles and miles this building went. And I thought, my first thought was, I had no idea that the hospital was this large, because I thought I was still laying there on the operating table. Well, it turned out that I had died and I was on the other side and I was in this building. And the next thing that happened was I heard in my left ear, I heard, "My name is Alan. I'm your spirit guide." And then, of course, I had no idea at the time anything about spirit guides. I had no idea. This all happened when I was 21 and nobody was talking about this back then. So he said, "My name is Alan. I'm your spirit guide." And then he told me that he was going to show me different things on the other side. And he was going to tell me what I was looking at. Well, I didn't know anything at that point. I didn't really know what was going on. So I just went along with it. And he told me that I was in an orientation center. And this is the building that people go to when their life on Earth ends. So when they die, and people, you've heard the common, I'm sure your listeners have probably heard some of the common ideas that near-death experienced people have had when they say that they've seen the tunnel and they've seen a white light. Well, I didn't see any of that. I somehow bypassed all of those different experiences, and I was transported directly to the other side. And this orientation building, it had these tunnels or these doorways that were on the left-hand side of me. And it's hard to describe what this looked like because it was just so perfect and so, it was just beautiful. It was white marble. And there were these doorways, these tunnels that led down about every 5 or 6 feet, there was another one. So every 5 or 6 feet, you look down this hallway or this corridor, you could see these doorways or these tunnels. And I had no idea what they were. Right to the right of each one of those tunnels, about 5 feet, there was a table, a beautiful marble white tables with 4 benches on each side. And these tables were in front of every single doorway. And at these tables, there were 2 people. Every single table, again, as far down as you could see, had these 2 people. And my guide told me that these are counselors. These counselors help people when they come back to the other side. Well, he told me to go ahead and look inside the tunnel. So the first door to my left, I looked in, and what I could see was absolutely breathtaking. As I looked in the tunnel, it was dark. It was like looking in space through a telescope because I could see stars, I could see planets, and I could see other galaxies. It was magical, an absolute magical looking experience. And then my guide told me that the counselors who were at these tables, their job is to help people when they first come through. Because when people die and they go through the tunnel, they don't have their memory back yet. For some reason, and I don't know how this is done, But any time that we come into an earth life, we get what they call amnesia. Somehow all of our memories about the other side we forget about, because we're supposed to learn lessons here when we come to earth. So the when the counselors, or what happens is, he told me to look up and look at the next doorway or the next tunnel. So I looked at the next doorway, and a man was coming through that tunnel. He had his right hand on his left chest, and he had died from having a heart attack. And he walked in through the doorway, and immediately this counselor, she stood up, she walked over, and she took his hands in hers, and she led him back over to this table, and she sat him down, and she started talking to him. I was too far away to hear what she was saying, but I could see her mouth moving, and she was talking to this gentleman that had died from. The job of all those counselors is to tell people that they have just finished a lifetime and that they have come back to the other side, because the other side is our true home. That's where we come from. And we go to life on the earth to learn lessons and to experience. So when all of us get back, we have these counselors there to help people adjust. So her job was to tell him that he'd had a lifetime on earth, he'd finished his lifetime, and now he had come back home. And the strangest thing, as she was talking to him, my guide told me to watch him, look at him as she's talking to him, so I did. And he started changing from age 80 or 90 until about the age of 30, 25 to age 30. And my guide said, everybody on the other side is age 25 or 30. So as she was listening to him, or as he was listening to her, he changed back from his older visage to what we all look like on the other side. And I was absolutely blown away by all of this, because I didn't know what I was seeing. I was just taking everything, and I thought I was somehow there I was supposed to be having surgery, and I had no idea what was going on. So I was just listening, and my guide said, watch him again. So I watched him again as he turned from age 80 or 90 to age 25 or 30. So after she was done talking to him and he changed back to age 25 or 30, he stood up and he walked off to the right. And off to the right were these gorgeous marble white columns. This whole building, it looked like it was built in Greece. It had marbled the columns. It looked like Romanesque, very Greek looking. And they had these marble columns going all the way down the whole corridor, just like the tunnels and just like those tables. Well, as he stood up, he walked off down to the right, and he walked down 3 steps, and he walked into what I call the gardens. The place that he walked into, it was so beautiful, Anthony, that I cannot even begin to describe to you what it was like. Flowers, plants, trees, grass. It was absolutely just breathtakingly beautiful. Nothing like that exists on Earth. The colors and the different flowers, and absolutely just beautiful. Well, what these gardens are is, once a soul comes back from their lifetime and they go through that orientation period with the counselors, they have a reunion with everyone who they lost in their earth life, or anyone who had passed before them. So their parents, their grandparents, if they lost any children, if they lost siblings, if they lost friends, everybody is there to greet you when you come back to the other side. And I had no idea how they know that. Like, how do they know when a person is going to die and they come through that? So I'll get into that a little bit later in part of what else I saw, but all of us have these wondrous, happy reunions with our relatives and friends once we cross. So that was the first place he showed me, called the Orientation Center. And all souls, when they cross over and leave Earth, they go through this Orientation Center, and then they go to the reunion. So that was the first building that he showed me. And what my guide did is every time he showed me something, he showed me the outside of the building first. That's how I could see that the first building, this Orientation Center, was as long as it was. So every time he took me to a new place, he showed me the outside first, and then he took me inside. The next place we went to, it was another gorgeous, beautiful, marble-looking building, but this one was round. It had a round dome top on it, kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen the Pantheon in Rome, but it's got this huge dome on it. It was just large, and these buildings were so incredibly gigantic. They were just unbelievably large. But this one had a round dome on it. And my guide told me that this is the building where we go to plan our lifetimes. And I thought, that is such a strange thing. So I just didn't know. I just kept listening, hearing what he was telling me, and just going along with what he was showing me. And he said, this is where we go every time one of us goes to plan a lifetime. So we walked in, and there were all these tables, and there were all these people, and they were writing things down, and people were writing down what goals they wanted to accomplish before they come into an earth life. So every time that we come into an earth life, we actually plan out our lifetime, where we're going to be born, what race we're going to be, what country, what school we're going to go to, what kind of career we're going to have. All of these things are actually written out ahead of time. And I know this because my guide told me, and he also showed me scrolls. There were 2 scrolls on this table that was right in front of me. And it looked like they were written on parchment paper, like an old Egyptian kind of scroll. And one had a blue ribbon and the other one had a red ribbon. And I have no idea what the significance of that was. But I walked over and I picked up the one that had a blue ribbon on it. And I took the ribbon off and I unscrolled the scroll. And what I could see was that there was writing all through this scroll that was about maybe 3 or 4 feet long, just this large scroll, and there was writing. And that writing was what I had written about my lifetime, what goals I had about coming into life, what I wanted to achieve, what I wanted to do spiritually. Everything was written down. And my guide said, everybody has this. Everybody goes through a process of writing these scrolls ahead of time. And that's kind of like a plan for your life. Well, when I went to try to actually read, I wanted to see what I'd written. What did I plan for? Well, as soon as I tried to go in and see what I had written, the scroll folded up again, and I wasn't able to read what was on there. And I think the reason is we come into life to test ourselves. We come in to put down obstacles for us to overcome so we can grow and develop. And I think if I had seen that, I wouldn't have gone through that test or gone through that obstacle to see how the scroll folded up. And learned from that building that every time we come into a life, just random, there's actually a purpose, and they call it a life chart. Over there on the other side, it's called a life chart, and your spirit guide actually helps you plan the things you want to go through. So I was just completely amazed by that. And that was the building that we plan our lives in. The next place he took me to, looked from the outside, it looked like a modern football stadium. It was absolutely huge. It was gigantic. It was probably actually larger than a football stadium. It was just enormous. And so he showed me the outside, and then he took me onto the inside. And the inside was all full of seats, thousands and thousands of seats. And the top of the building was domed. And he told me it was a planetarium. And what that meant was people on the other side, part of the things that they do over there, that they do for fun, they go to planetariums and they can see shows or they can see information about planets and galaxies. Well, as soon as I walked in, another voice from behind me, and I had the impression that this was a person that ran the planetarium, that actually determined what they were going to show in terms of entertainment or what they're going to show in terms of planets and whatnot. So he told me to sit down. I sat down, and the whole place went dark, like they had turned the lights off. And the person behind me said, when you look at the stars, meaning me, meaning humanity, people on Earth, when we look at the stars, this is what we see. Meaning when we look up at night, we see our planets through telescopes. We'll see, and he started showing Jupiter or Mars or Uranus or Neptune, all the planets that are in our solar system. And he said, when you look at the stars, that's what you see. Next, he said, when we look at the stars, meaning everybody who's on the other side, when we look at the stars, this is what we see. And all of a sudden, different planets started showing up on the ceiling, on the planetarium. Brown planets, red planets, yellow, blue planets, green planets. And at first there were hundreds showing, then thousands, then millions and millions of these planets showing up one after the other, boom, 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 on the top of the ceiling. And my guide told me, or not my guide, the person that was behind me who was running this person said, there is far more life in the universe than you possibly realize. And what that meant was all of these planets he was showing me, those planets you can have lifetimes on. And that just totally blew me away. How is it possible that you can have lifetimes? And he said you can have lifetimes just like you can on Earth, but you can have lifetimes on other planets. And my guide at this point told me that the Earth plane that we have our lives on here on this planet is the hardest planet that there is in terms of all the planets, because we have war, we have hunger, we have homelessness, we have disease, we have death, we have violence. All of those things don't exist on other planets because they have evolved to a point where they don't do those anymore. Only Earth is the last planet that has all the negativity, all of these horrible things that happen. And we come here because we want to learn. And we also come here because we want to try to help make a difference, to bring the Earth and to bring the population, the civilization to the point where we don't have wars, we don't have starvation, we don't have homelessness. So there's two reasons really why people come here, and that's to learn and to experience and try to uplift humankind. So I just thought that was absolutely incredible to see that and to learn that. So that was the stadium. The next place he took me to was the largest building so far It was. Do you remember what the Greek Parthenon looks like?
Mm-mm.
You know how the Greek Parthenon is the building in Greece that has the columns in the front of it. It's a huge square kind of rectangular building, but it's got the columns on the front of it instead of on the sides. Well, that's what this building looked like. It was the biggest building that I had seen so far. And the columns were out front of it. And there were probably 40 or 50 steps that were leading up to it. It looked kind of like what our Supreme Court building looks like. The beautiful marble type of building with the columns, the white columns out front. So that was the outside. I didn't know what it was. Again, my guide took me on the inside. And I should say, before I forget, what I learned was that everybody who comes into Earth has a spirit guide. I don't know if you've heard that before, but everyone has a spirit guide who helps guide them through their lifetime on Earth. And that's usually the first person that they see when they cross over, when their lifetime is finished. That spirit guide helps them when they go through the tunnel to help bring them back to the other side. So anyway, this huge building, he took me on the inside. And the very second I got in there, I could tell it was a huge, huge library. Again, when I looked down, I could not see an end. It looked like it was miles and miles long. And it was full of bookshelves. And the bookshelves were probably 20 or 30 feet in height. And there were people everywhere. People everywhere were studying, reading, talking, visiting. It was the busiest place that I had seen so far. And these were all, of course, all the people that had crossed over and were on the other side. And one of the big things we do there is that we learn. Learning continues. And that's something that people have just this, it's kind of like a burning desire. A lot of times what you do over there is you learn. You go to the library and you read and you study, but you also come into life to learn and to grow and to develop spiritually. And it's kind of like people say, well, why don't they just learn on the other side? Why would you ever come into Earth in the first place? Well, the reason is for the experience. And it's kind of like if you were trying to describe to somebody how to ride a bicycle, you can't really describe it to them. You can tell them what it's like, but they don't know what it's like until they actually do it, ride an actual bicycle. And that's what it's like when you come into the Earth. You actually have a lifetime and you go through experiences where you learn things. So that's one of the reasons that we come into life. But anyway, the knowledge in the library was just extensive. Anything that you wanted to learn about anything and about any time period, anywhere, was in this library. Well, my guide took me over to the left-hand side of this library.
Oh, you're quiet, John.
It went out again?
Yeah,
Okay.
We're good now.
All right, good. He took me to the left side of the building. And to the left side were these rooms. All the way down, again, as far as you could see, were these rooms. Just like we have libraries today, we have study rooms. And they're usually off to a certain side of the library. Well, this building had the same thing. It had these rooms. And they were probably 10 feet by 15 feet wide. And I walked over to it. And there was a woman who was sitting down on a couch. And she had her back to me. And she had long, straight, jet black hair. And she was wearing a purple gown, kind of like a tunic or a robe, but I guess more like a gown. And she was sitting there and she was watching what looked like to be what we would call a flat screen TV. And we didn't have flat screen TVs back when I was growing up. So I didn't know what I was looking at.
Huh.
But my guide said it was a video screen, kind of like just like if you went to Best Buy and looked at the TVs, it looked like one of those, but it was big. It was like 50 to 60 inches across. It was this big video screen. Well, she was watching something on this screen, and my guide told me she was watching a battle on the earth that had happened hundreds of years ago between the cavalry, the United States cavalry, and the Native American Indians. And I thought to myself, how is it possible that she could be watching a historic battle when back then there were no cameras? There were no video screens. So there were no video cameras. So how in the world could she be watching this? And he told me everything that's done on the earth is recorded. Every single event, everything that a person has done, everything is recorded and can be seen again. So she was doing some research, again, because people love knowledge. They love to learn on the other side. She was doing research and knowledge about this war that was happening. So here I was supposed to be in the operating room having surgery. I was on the other side, or the afterlife. I was in a library watching a woman who was watching history on the earth plane. And I was absolutely just blown away. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. But it was so much detail that I wanted to stay. I wanted to watch something else too. I had always wanted to know what it was like to see D-Day, the invasion of Normandy in France. Well, you can do that in these rooms. Anything that you want to see or anything you want to review or take a look at from the past, you just have to go to these rooms. I don't know how she was able to pull up that particular battle, but there's some kind of component inside that room that lets you access anything in history. And here was the coolest part about this. Have you ever seen the episodes of Star Trek Generations with Captain Picard? Do you remember those ones?
Yeah.
Do you remember when they had the holodeck?
Mm-hmm.
Those episodes?
Yeah.
Here's the craziest thing about the other side and about these rooms. You don't have to just watch history like she was doing. You can actually step into history, and you can be there, and you can see it. You can smell it. You can touch it. You can actually be there, and you can experience what those people experienced during that lifetime. So if you wanted to go back and take a look and see how the pyramids were built, you can do that. And you can spend time going into the past and seeing what it was these people were doing. So not only did you have the video capability, but you could actually step into history and witness it and actually see it. And I think of everything that I've seen during my experience, I think that was probably the most fantastic aspect of it. It was just beautiful to see. The next place he took me to was a castle. And it looked like a castle from the medieval times, just like we would think of a castle that has the towers. Mm-hmm. It had a drawbridge. It had all the things that we typically see of a castle. And again, my guide said, this is what we do to learn. We have different things we can go to learn from. And anybody who was interested in learning about a particular period of Earth's history, you can go there on the other side. And they actually have real buildings built that look like that. So he took me to a time in medieval England where they had castles. So he showed me this castle from the outside. It was enormous. It was absolutely beautiful. And he told me to walk in. So I walked in the castle, and there was a beautiful red carpet that was laid out on the floor, just like what you see today. Kind of like, it felt like it was royalty when you walking on this red carpet. And off to the left and off to the right were these huge walls. And I walked over to the left-hand side of this wall, and there were life-size paintings of people. And my guide told me that these life-size paintings were people that had lived in that castle during Earth's time, during that time period, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So if you wanted to go see what King George looked like, you could walk into that castle and you could see what his picture was, the whole frame, his whole body, life-size paintings. There were hundreds of them. And what they were, the paintings were of the people of royalty that had lived in that castle during that period in history. So I could see their actual picture. And right in front of every single picture, there was a podium. Or, like a podium or a lectern. And on the podium, there was a book. And it was a book that was like if you were looking at the Bible, it was flipped open in the middle, and it was just laying there flat on this podium. So I walked over to it, and I looked at the book, and my guide told me that every single thing that this person did in their lifetime is in this book. So if you wanted to go to the other side, if you were there on the other side and wanted to learn about what it was like during that time period, you could go to this castle. More than that, though, you could read this book. And this book was about that person's life, where that king or queen or prince or whomever, wherever they grew up. It talked about where they went to school. It talked about their friends. It talked about decisions that they had made as royalty. But the other thing that was remarkable was that it also had conversations. Every conversation that that person had in their lifetime was in this book. And I asked my guide, how in the world is it possible that everything can be recorded? And he said it was by God. That's all he said, was that God has the ability that everything is recorded, so nobody can get away with anything. Everything is recorded. Well, as I was standing there looking at this book, off to my right, there was a circular staircase that led up to the second floor of this castle. And I looked over to my right, and there was a woman who was walking down this stairway. And she had on a red, kind of a red gown on. And she had strawberry blonde hair. And of course, she was in her 30s, 25 or 30, like everyone else, like everybody else is over there. And she walked up to me. She could see me. She could actually see me standing there. So she walked up to me and she said, "Is there anything I can help you find?" And I was so blown away by that. I didn't know what to say. And I felt like, when you walk into a retail store, or you walk into a store looking to buy some new clothes, or you're looking to buy a computer, the salesperson says, "Is there anything I can help you with?" And normally you say no. I said the exact same thing. I said, "No, I'm just looking around." And I still kick myself to this day thinking, why in the world did I say I was only looking around? Mm-hmm. I could have asked her anything. I could have asked her, where was I? What's going on? Who are you? Where am I? Well, my guide told me that her job on the other side was kind of like being a scholar of this particular time of Earth's history. So if you wanted to know about what it was like back then, what their lives were like, what they did, you could ask her, and she could tell you everything about that period of Earth's history. So on the other side, we work, we do things, but we don't have to work for money.
Mhm.
It's totally different than it is here. We work at things that we love. And one of the things that she loved on the other side was that particular time of Earth's history. And that was what she did. She helped educate people about that time period. And it was just absolutely amazing to me. And that was probably the biggest thing, is that she could see me. And I didn't even think to look down to see if I had a body or not. I didn't look down. But everybody I saw had bodies.
Okay.
I know sometimes you hear people say that people are just light energy. Well, they aren't. They actually have bodies there, and I could see people. So that was the castle building. The next thing he took me to was kind of like a theater that was kind of like a modern theater we would go to today. You walk in, and there's seats, and it's kind of round building. When I walked in, there were screens, movie screens, all around in a circle in this building. And all of a sudden, all the screens turned on, like the movie screen, like the movie had started, and it was playing. And there must have been 30 or 40 different screens that were playing in this theater, and they started. And what it was is these screens were about my life. And one screen was about me as an infant, like there was playing a movie of me as a little kid, and I was watching it. The next screen had me as an adolescent, what I was doing, what I was carrying on with. The next one was a screen about my life in school, elementary school, and all the way along until I was 21. It had shown my life. And my guide told me that all of us have life reviews when we come back from Earth. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I only learned really what that meant after I came back. But he said, we all have life reviews, and your life is looked at when you're done to see if you had met the goals that you had set for yourself when you were planning that lifetime. He also told me that during that life review, you can feel what people felt during that time period. So if you hurt someone's feelings, if you did something that hurt somebody, you can feel what that person felt. And it just blew me away. If you hurt somebody in life, you don't get away with it. You have to actually feel what they felt when you cross over. And that's another way that you learn. And nobody gets out of the life review. In fact, what actually ends up happening in terms of how the sequence actually works is when a person crosses over, they go through the orientation center, they go through the reunion, and once their reunion is done, their guide takes them to see their life, to do a life review. Again, to see how you did, how you compared with what you wanted to achieve, and if you had met your goals. So that was called the life review, or the life review building. I don't know if there was a specific name to it, but it's an actual building that you go to, and everyone reviews their lives there. Here's something else that happened, and this really kind of blew me away, because I was raised Catholic, and I thought we only ever had one lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I had no reason to believe that anything else existed, or that we had another life outside of what we have here. Well, he took me to another building. And again, this building looked like it was a theater, but instead of having all the multiple screens, this only had one screen in the front. And my guide told me that this is where we go if we want to review past lifetimes. And that was the first time that I had ever heard anybody say anywhere that we had more than one life. Well, reincarnation actually exists. It's a real process, because on this screen, he showed me 3 past lifetimes that I had had on Earth. One was of a fisherman. I was standing in a boat and I had my net, and I would cast my net off into the water. And that's how I helped. That's what we ate. It was me, and I was part of a village, and we did a lot of fishing. It was like a fishing village. The other life he showed me was one of a shoe peddler, and I was pushing a wheelbarrow with shoes in it, and my job in that town was to fix people's shoes. So I had a little shop that I would fix their shoes in, and then I would put them all in a wheelbarrow, and I would take the wheelbarrow with me, and I would drop the shoes off to the people that had me repair them. So that life was about being a shoe peddler. And the third life he showed me was that of a monk. I had a monk life, and my job was to teach the young boys about the monastery and to teach about Buddhism. And those were the 3 lifetimes that he showed me. And I was just absolutely amazed, because I knew I didn't look like myself, because I was in a different body, of course, but I knew that those 3 people, they were me. And I was having that lifetime. And all of us go through different lifetimes to learn and to grow. And incidentally, a lot of times there are souls that don't come to Earth because life is too hard here. Life is very, very hard for many people because we go through so much on a daily basis. We have loss. We have all the things that happen here on Earth. We have all those things happen, and a lot of people don't come here because they feel like it is too hard. So it's really a big deal when a person comes into a lifetime, especially here on Earth, because you go through so much and you learn so much, and that's why people come in. Well, the next thing that he showed me sports fields, miles and miles of these sports fields. So anybody who loves to play sports, they can play sports, whether you want to play football, soccer, golf, martial arts, tennis, basketball, any kind of game you want to play is over there. And people don't get hurt. Their bodies are solid. It's like your body is made of light and energy, but it's stronger than our earthly bodies are. So you can play and do these things, and you can never get hurt. And you never have to take a break because you're tired, because the soul body doesn't get tired. So anybody who loves sports can play sports as long as they want. It was absolutely incredible. And I'm a huge soccer fan, so I can't wait to get there so I can, play soccer again, because I love it. So that he showed me that. Then he also showed me that all of our animals that we've had in our lifetime, they cross over also. And I was actually able to see my animals that had crossed over. And they were young again. They didn't have any diseases. They were young. They were cancer-free. Just like what happens to us when we cross. We don't have any diseases on the other side. So if we died from cancer, cancer is gone. There's no cancer. There's no disease. There's no hunger on the other side. It's kind of like the earth in a way, but it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect here on the other side, and you can enjoy your existence. And as he was showing me around these places, there are so many things that a person can do on the other side. They can hike. They can take classes. They can paint. They can go to lectures. They can go to music festivals. Anything that you do here on Earth, you can also do on the other side. But it's absolutely perfect on the other side. It's perfect over there. Well, here's the last thing that happened. He took me to a field, and if you can try to imagine the most beautiful field, a meadow that you can imagine with wildflowers up to your knees, that's what this meadow looked like. Just picturesque, beautiful, nothing that I've ever seen here on Earth. And instantaneously, a man showed up, and he was also in his 30s. And he was so bright that I couldn't see his face. And all I could see of him were his hands and his robe. He was wearing a white robe, and he had a golden sash across his stomach, and he had golden sandals on. And he spoke to me, and this person said, "You must tell them there is no death." And I believe that it was Jesus that told me that, because everybody else I saw there didn't look like he did. He was so bright. His light was so bright. Again, I couldn't see his face. And he told me, "You must tell them there is no death." And then right after he said that, I was back in my body on the operating room table. And the staff, the operating room staff they were just frantic trying to bring me back. I had found out later that they had shocked me 5 different times to get my heart started. So all of this that had happened on the other side, everything that my guide showed me, it felt like I had been there for an hour, but I was only there for 7 minutes. And I found out that the other side doesn't have time like we do here. We have linear time. Every hour means something. We have hours, we have days, we have weeks. That time doesn't exist on the other side. So my guide showed me so much. He took me on a tour of the other side in such a short period of time on the Earth plane, but it seemed like it was for an hour when I was over there.
Mhm.
And that was my experience. That's what happened. And when I got back to the operating room, they were so freaked out because of the anesthesia of the heart attack that they postponed the surgery. So I had to come back at a later time to actually get my hand fixed, which I could understand. They didn't want to put me through anesthesia again after my heart stopped the first time. So that was my whole story. That's what happened.
All right. Well, if you like, you can go ahead and tell your next few paranormal and supernatural stories you got.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. When I was a little kid, I used to be able to get out of my body. And at the time, I didn't know what it was called, but it's called astral projection. And everybody has the ability to do it because our bodies are inhabited by our souls. And our souls are what gets carried on to the other side when we leave and we die here on the earth. But I remember when I was a little kid, my mom would put me down for naps. And I must have been 2 years old, 3 years old. I remember this so vividly. She'd put me down for naps. And as soon as I fell asleep, I would be out of my body flying around in the backyard. And for those of your audience who knows that feeling, it's absolutely the most incredible feeling to fly, to actually just fly around your backyard. It was the most fun I'd ever had as a kid. And I only had that ability for a couple of years. I lost it. And later on, I found out that people can still do it. but it's called Astral Projection, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to be able to do that automatically. Well, since I was a kid, I lost that ability. I haven't been able to do it since I was a kid. But at the time, it was just so much fun. I had something else happen when I was a little bit older, and I could get up and go to the bathroom by myself at night. I would get up, and there would be a woman sitting on the edge of my bed every single night I woke up. And it wasn't my mom, because I could see right through her. She was a spirit. And she was just there every single night. I don't know why she was there. She never talked to me. I probably couldn't have heard her anyway. But she never said a word. She was just sitting there like she was protecting me. I don't know why she would be protecting me, but she was just there. And that went on for about 2 years. So when I was about age 7, she stopped showing up, and I have never seen her again. And those were the experiences that happened when I was growing up. And probably the most important thing that I learned from my experience, my near-death experience, was that there is hope. There's every reason to be hopeful. Hope for the future, because when we leave this lifetime, we go back home again where everything is perfect. So no matter how hard things are here, do your best, get through it, learn as much as you can, and try to help people along the way. And that's all they want us to do. So that was my experience.
All right. So I have plenty of questions for you. That's why I was hoping you keep going with your story, and I can write as many as I could as fast as I could.
Sure. Okay.
All right. So for my first question, did that squirrel survive?
Does what?
Did the squirrel survive?
No.
No.
I actually ran over him, and I felt so bad too, because as soon as I turned, he turned exactly the way I turned, and I ran over him. Poor little guy.
Yeah, I had that happen to me, man. I try to avoid all animals, and then it happens, and then I feel so guilty. So
I know. I felt horrible. I feel just horrible on that.
Now, what do you think it was that gave you that allergic reaction?
You know what? I don't know. I talked to a what do you call someone who does the I spoke to an anesthetist.
Okay.
And she told me that they don't really know why sometimes people have reactions to the anesthesia, but sometimes people do. And she said, in my case, I was just allergic to the anesthesia. For some reason, it affected my heart that way, and it stopped it. But she couldn't give me a reason as to why that happened, only that it did, and that they were able to bring me back, but they had to shock me 5 times. So I don't understand why it happened or what the reasoning is. But I wasn't the only one. I'm not the only one it's happened to. That kind of a reaction has happened to other people too who have gone through surgeries. So it definitely happens.
Okay. Let's see. How did you ever get to see your spirit guide?
No, actually, I never actually saw him. He was to my left. And he was talking to me in my left ear. But that's a good question, because I never actually saw him. I could only hear him.
Did they ever mention to you? Did they ever mention to you why you couldn't see your spirit guide?
No, he never said a word. It's like I felt like he was rushing me. Like there wasn't time to see everything he wanted to show me, because of course my time was limited on Earth because they were trying to revive me. But I just had the impression that he was kind of showing me things quickly. And the weirdest thing about this whole thing was it seemed to me like they knew I was coming, that he had set this up ahead of time. Well, how could they possibly have known I mean, I know that they can check in on us and they can see what we're doing in our lifetime, but how would they know that I was going to have an allergic reaction to the anesthesia?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I never asked, and I have no idea how they could possibly have known that, because it just didn't seem like it was random. It seemed like it was planned
Mm-hmm.
where they took me. So it was just, but I never actually saw what he looked like.
Okay. All right. Have you heard your spirit guide since?
Nope. I never heard him at all since then. I have heard of some people that have NDEs, they come back and they have that kind of an ability where they can hear their guides, or they come back and they realize they can compose music, or they can come back and they can hear their guides. But I didn't get anything. I didn't have a single thing happen.
Why do you think that
And
is?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Hmm.
I don't know if, I can't hear my guides. I don't have any abilities. The only thing that ever happened to me after I had my near-death experience, in terms of what you might call paranormal, was 6 years ago. My wife's dad died. We were all in the hospital. We were all there, wishing him, telling him we loved him. And he died that day. Well, that night, I had a dream that he came to me. It was like a vision. And he told me he was all right. And if I would please tell his family that he was okay. Well, that was the only thing that's ever happened to me since my near-death experience that I could say was paranormal.
Okay.
But I've never had anything else happen since then.
Okay. What was your lesson you had to learn when you were on Earth? Do you know what your lessons are or anything like that?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know what I wrote down. They wouldn't let me see the chart. But that was a great question. And I've thought about that many, many times since I've been here. And I know that what I'm supposed to do is to educate people, to share with people what they told me about. I must tell them there is no death.
Okay.
So ever since I was 21 and I had that experience, I had been sharing it with people as much as I could. And now that we have the internet and social media, I can share that with a lot more people, like on your show.
Yeah.
I never dreamed there'd ever be this kind of platform that I could share this experience with. So that's what I consider my mission or my path to be.
Yeah.
But I think I'm also supposed to learn about what it's like to have disabilities. Because when I was born with learning disabilities, and they were so severe that I had to have tutors with me for many, many years while I was growing up. So I think if I have anything to learn, that was probably one of the most important things that I had to learn, was how to learn to learn with disabilities. And I'm able to learn because I went to college and I got a degree. It just takes me longer to learn things. So that was probably the one thing I'd have to say that I did come in with, that I wanted to learn more about and how to get through and how to overcome. I think that was something that I had charted as part of a challenge for me.
Okay. All right. When you went to the other side, did you see any geometric shapes of any sort?
No, actually, all I saw were the buildings. And it was so, I wish I could describe in what they really looked like, because they were just perfect. And most of the buildings that I saw were Romanesque or Greek-like, with the columns, the beautiful white marble columns. But I didn't really notice any geometric shapes of any kind other than those.
Okay. All right. Here's my next question. It's more of opinion, but you said that we choose our own lives to live.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you picked out a great life?
I'd have to say no. Not a great life, right? I think a lot of times people will come here because they want to experience the negativity. They want to experience challenges. They want to experience things that they can't experience on the other side. So if I wanted to just have a happy lifetime where everything was perfect all the time, there would be no reason to leave, to come here. And I think that's probably the reason that we come here and we go through hardships. All of us have hard times. All of us have to go through things that are difficult. And those are all charted. And again, it's all for our growth. But for me, I had my life when I was growing up from kindergarten through high school, it was kind of like pure hell because the disabilities were so bad. I couldn't keep up with the rest of the class. I was always in what they called special education. I just had a really horrible time learning. But as I got older, I was able to learn different things that I could do, that I could learn faster. And I've overcome a lot of those. But even to this day, there are still things that I have learning disabilities with. And mostly it revolves around math. Mm-hmm. So as I got older and I got through college and started working, got married, had kids, my life got a lot better. I still go through challenges and obstacles, but it's not as bad as it was when I was a kid. Some people choose lifetimes where everything seems perfect. And many times in my experience, people that have lifetimes like that, it could be their first life coming to Earth. And they just kind of want to have a good life. They want to know kind of what it's like to be here. And there are other people that you meet that seem to have just a lot of tough times. Mm-hmm. And they charted those things too. Because when I was in that building where we plan our lifetime and we write our lives on those scrolls, we really do plan challenges for ourselves. And I had a friend of mine, he lives in Spain, and he's been to, I don't know if you've heard the term medium before, what a medium is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've never met a medium that I thought was real. I think a lot of them are fakes. Mm-hmm. But I also know that there are mediums that are real, that are able to contact people on the other side. Well, this friend of mine lost his wife to a flu just 2 years ago. And he said that he believed his wife had charted that to pass over and to cross to the other side for him to experience what it was like to lose a spouse. So to me, I never saw that part of my scroll to plan or to see if we actually plan our passing. All I really knew was that we plan our lifetimes, but I didn't know that we plan our passing. So that's still a question that I have in my heart. Do we actually plan the time that we're going to go? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We my oldest sister just lost her husband to cancer, and that was 2 weeks ago. And I was thinking to myself, talking to my wife, do you think it's possible that he really planned to die at a certain time in his lifetime? I know we all have to cross at some point because that's the nature of life. You come in here and you age, and eventually your body dies. Well, what I don't know from my experience is, do we actually chart that? Because you have kids who die in automobile accidents. You have kids that die from cancer. Yeah. You have older adults. You have people who die from horrible diseases. And are those things planned ahead of time? And that's what I don't know. So that's something I'm still trying to find the answer to.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've heard of people that were pregnant and had children and say that child just dies randomly. Well, I heard of a reincarnation where this child, like this woman gets pregnant again and she has another child. And this child says, "Mommy, I'm sorry I made you sad when I died, but I wasn't ready yet." And
I've heard those. I've heard
yeah,
that too.
and the mom was just so amazed. So it kind of really fits into what you're talking about when, some people don't even want to come down here and try to live a life because it's so scary or, horrible.
Absolutely.
It's so amazing. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see, okay, you said that we are choosing to live these lives to grow. Why do you think we're trying to grow for the afterlife if we're already perfect? Is it just to teach us, or we just keep trying to learn all the time, or?
Yeah, we aren't perfect, but the other side is perfect. And what I mean by perfect, the other side is it's like a paradise. It's like Earth, but it's 1,000 times better. And it's perfection. Nothing dies there. We don't get old there. We're always aged 25 or 30. We don't have diseases there. We don't have anything that's negative that the Earth has. It's like the Earth, but only perfect. The other side is perfect, but we as individuals aren't perfect. We still have many things that we can do to grow and to learn. And that's something that, from what I gathered on the other side when I had my experience, is that that's what God had implanted in all of us, was the desire to want to continue to learn and to grow. There are many souls who actually haven't had lifetimes that don't want to come in, especially here to Earth. They don't want to experience what it's like to have a loss. They don't want to experience what it's like to have challenges or things to overcome or losing someone. They don't want to experience that.
Yeah.
So people that come to Earth, we're really here kind of like warriors. It's almost like when you come to Earth, you come to battle, because some things are so hard here to get through. And sometimes things are so hard and just difficult to move forward. But to answer your question, we're kind of, our DNA, if you will, kind of revolves around learning and growing and developing. So everybody learns and develops. It's just that if you want to learn quickly and you want to learn more, you can come to this planet to have an incarnation, to have an Earth life. And if you don't want to learn, you can still stay on the other side and you can read. You can go to those research rooms in that big library. You can talk to people. But again, you don't have the actual experience. So coming here gives you the experience of really learning, so that when you come back to the other side, you've learned more, you've developed more. So that's kind of the reason that we come in, but we're definitely not perfect.
Okay. Did you ever see a tunnel above you that may have like a tunnel of angels or anything like that?
Nope. I didn't have any of that. And I didn't learn about what a near-death experience was until years later, when I heard and started researching what it was that happened to me.
Yeah.
Normally people will get out of their bodies when they die. Their soul will be there and they'll see a tunnel. And then they'll see people in the tunnel who are coming to greet them. And then they'll see the white light. Well, I didn't have any of that. And I don't know to this day why I skipped all that. But for some reason, I was just transported to the other side right then and there. And I didn't think to ask why that was. But that's just what happened.
When all this happened to you and you got sent to the afterlife at 21, how has that impacted your life since?
Oh, it's changed. It's changed everything. I have absolutely no more fear of dying or of death. And it's given me the ability to share with people now the hope that exists, that there is so much more to our existence than what we know on Earth. It also helped me a lot because I learned that anyone that I lost, I remember when I lost my grandma. I was 11 years old when she died. And I remember thinking to myself, how is it possible that my grandma, who was funny, who was intelligent, who had all of these traits about her, could actually end, and that death meant there was no more of her?
Yeah.
I had a really hard time believing that. So my near-death experience gave me the ability to know that we do go on, and that there's no reason to fear anymore, and that my job is to teach people and to share with people what I saw. And that gives me the greatest amount of comfort, knowing that this isn't all there is, that we are just here for a very short period of time to learn and to grow. And that anything you go through, as hard as it might be, that you'll survive, and that you'll have that information, that knowledge, that growth with you when you return to the other side.
Why do you think Earth was chose to be one of the hardest planets?
That I have no idea. I don't know why that is. When I was shown the planets in the planetarium, I was shown what the planets looked like as if you were in orbit. If you could see the planet from orbit. I couldn't see any details. All I could really see was the color of each planet. But I knew that every one of those planets had, just like we have life on this planet, and that we can incarnate and have lifetimes on those planets. And those planets are not as hard. And I don't know what the reason is that Earth is the hardest of all the planets to come to, because of all the things we have here. And if you think about it, if you're a soul on the other side and you want to learn something and you want to experience something, you want to go to a place where you can actually learn quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Earth does. You come here and you learn lessons very quickly, from childhood all the way through your entire adulthood. And you take that learning with you. There was a friend of mine that told me that when you come into life, you come in with nothing. And when you leave life here, you leave with nothing except your character. You take with you the kind of person you've become. And that stays with you on the other side.
Okay. All right. So Earth being this planet where there's a lot of negativity. So say if we all were to change the Earth by having the same experience that you have had, do you think we would ascend our lessons? Like make it to where it's almost like the other side? And would that stop us from learning lessons? Would that make it our lessons complete? What if we yeah.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. On the other side, maybe I can answer it this way. On the other side, when you're there, people still have their same personalities. They don't all of a sudden become 100% enlightened when they cross over. They still have their same knowledge and their same learning. But when they cross over from a lifetime, they have learned more than when they came in. And that's really the whole goal, to learn and to help others. But that's a really good question. If people were to have an experience where they knew that the other side was real, and that they knew that God was real, and that there was a real purpose for every person's life, I think we could have the ability to change this planet 100%, just like you were saying, if we all had that ability, it would almost be like being on the other side.
Yeah. That would be
Yeah, if we could do that here, that would actually be phenomenal, because it would end hunger, it would end homelessness, there'd be no war.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be little kids who have to die from starvation or some kind of disease. People would have clothing, they would have housing.
Yeah.
And the funny thing that I've always thought is that there was so much money on this planet that we could actually end that. We could end starvation forever.
Yeah.
We could end homelessness. It's just that we as a whole haven't evolved to the point where we want to put every human being first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This planet is what they sometimes call the ego planet, or ego rules, where everybody is looking to outdo each other. Everybody thinks that it's important to make the most money, to have the nicest house, to have the best paying job, and to continually have more and more things. Well, those things aren't important. We all have to have money to live here. But what we're really supposed to be doing is helping other people. That's what they care about. That's what God cares about. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think if we could do that,
Yeah.
we could totally change the whole earth. We could change the world.
That would be great. I would like to see that
Yeah.
happen one day.
Me too. I think that would be phenomenal.
What would we do without a spirit guide? What would happen to us if we didn't have a spirit guide? And what is there places other than Earth, planets we go to, where you don't have a spirit guide?
The one about, do we have spirit guides on other planets? I don't know. My spirit guide, when I was on the other side, he didn't tell me. He didn't mention anything about spirit guides on the other planets, so I don't know. That part I don't know. What I have heard about what if we didn't have a spirit guide, how would that impact us?
Mm-hmm.
I have thought about that a lot, because I talk to my guide now, to this day. I talk to him several times a day, but I never hear him. What I am told is the guidance that we get from our guides comes in our dreams, because they know that they can't hear us. We are, from what I was told, we are in the third dimension, kind of like a third level. And the other side is on the fourth dimension, or the fourth level. And both sides can't communicate except with mediums, the people who can speak to those who have crossed over,
Yeah.
and through our dreams. So I've never been able to hear my guide since I came back, I never did until I was on the other side, but I've never been able to hear my guide ever. The only times that I've been aware of having a spirit guide has been through dreams, because you'll wake up sometimes and you'll have these ideas in your head, and those ideas aren't necessarily your own. They come from your guide. So that was explained to me as in terms of how they communicate with us.
Okay. Do you know if your guide had a name, or if it's a family member or a friend on the other side?
Yeah. My guide, when I first had the orientation center, when I first got there, he said, "My name is Alan. I am your spirit guide." So I have always called him Alan. And on the other side, when I was there, they told me that people who have crossed over, friends, family, anybody that you loved or anything over there, they can hear you when you talk out loud to them. So I'm always talking to my father-in-law. I'm always talking out loud to friends that I've had that have crossed over. I think I have at least 5 friends that I dearly miss who have died from various causes. And I talk to them all the time. I even ask my guide to tell their guide to talk to me. but again, I don't have the ability to hear them. That's why I think they can communicate with us through our dreams, unless a person who is a medium is able to do that for you. And I have a friend, she lives in England, and she said that she went to a medium out there who actually contacted her fiance who had passed over from a motorcycle accident. And she was absolutely convinced that it was him she was talking to.
Wow.
Does that kind of answer your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. What about, do we carry on to the next life with being able to have relationships like man and woman relationships, that kind of relationship instead of
Yeah.
do you see any of that on the other side as well?
Yeah, from what I saw, people still will be together. I don't know if they call it marriage or not. But if you love someone, you'll still be with that person when you cross over and when they get over there. I saw so many people and in different levels of relationships, because you have loved ones from previous lifetimes also, and you have friends from previous lifetimes also. So when you cross over and you go through orientation and have your reunion, you're going to have all of your memories back from all the lifetimes you lived. And because Earth is so hard, the reunions that people have are absolutely extraordinary, because everybody comes in to welcome you back. Friends, family from other lifetimes, they all come to welcome you. But I don't know if there is such a thing as marriage or not.
Okay.
That I didn't see, so I don't know.
Yeah, I can only imagine you carrying a wife or a girlfriend from this time period when you go back and all your other girlfriends and stuff or boyfriends on the other side are like, oh, got another one.
Yes, exactly. I have thought about that too. And even my wife, she says, I'm not going to talk to you on the other side. So she teases me about stuff like that. So that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that one.
Now, what year was it when you had your NDE?
You know what? I think it was, I don't know the actual year. I'm 56 now, and I had it when I was 21. So I don't know.
Late 80s?
It was sometime in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I had it.
Okay. For the audience, he mentioned that he's seen something that we would call flat screen TV today. So for him to see that in the late 80s, there was nothing but big box TVs. So it's just so amazing that he was able to see something that we have now as technology today.
Oh, that's a good point. I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Now, do you get to keep all of your memories from your past lives?
Yes. When you cross over and you are acclimated back to where you're from, coming back home again, all of your memories, your whole essence comes back. So you have all of your memories back with you. So yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. Do you think that the government technology that's obviously hidden from us or today able to see it, do you think it can simulate the same stuff and abilities that you've seen on the other side?
Huh. I don't know. I read a book one time that was written by a medium, and the medium said that everything that we have on Earth comes from the other side first.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
That's all I know. Yeah, that's the only thing I know. I didn't have any experience with that when I was over there.
Okay.
I didn't have any experience with technology at all. All they told me was that people can accomplish or can do the same things over there that they can do here, but that scientists who are working on things like curing cancer, people on the other side also do research. And they infuse that knowledge into people here to try to help them to learn about how to cure cancer or how to cure diseases. So everything that we normally get here
Yeah.
comes from the other side first.
Okay.
So I have heard that.
All right. Where you were at on this afterlife, was it like in space or on some type of platform?
It was like the tunnels that people go through, that looked like it was space, but it was absolutely beautiful. It was probably the most magical thing that I've ever seen in my life. Absolute beautiful tunnel. But the other side is like, it's like a planet. It's like Earth, but it's just perfect.
Yeah.
1,000 times better than it is here. But it is just like an Earth. We have the same kind of topography in terms of mountains. The other side has oceans, has beaches, has lakes, but there's no pollution. It's just absolutely, it's like a beautiful other side planet is where we go to. And from what I'm told, it's very close dimension-wise to this one. So they're very close together. We just can't break through that veil and see each other.
Okay. Now, why do you think they build copies and replicas of things from here over there?
Just because I think people want to learn. Like if people who don't come into life, who never want to have an experience here, there are people who love that part of history. And they recreate that on the other side just as a point of learning. It's fun for them.
Yeah.
They have fun. They enjoy doing that. They like the learning. And believe it or not, there are people that love to wear the costumes or the dress that people had back then.
Yeah.
So the girl in that castle, she was dressed like somebody who lived in the medieval times. She looked just like them. So people love to dress up and remember the times in the past. There are people that I saw, everybody in terms of clothing seems to wear tunics or robes. And I said, why does everybody wear this kind of these tunics or uniforms? And my guide said it's because they're the most comfortable. But there are people there that wear jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's totally up to you, whatever you want to wear.
Okay. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Now, was you able to see where God was located or the white light or anything like that?
No. Nope, I didn't see anything.
Did they tell
It was more like there's this feeling when you're there of tremendous love and peace, and that comes from God. And there wasn't any specific location that I felt God existed. It was more like He was just everywhere. God was this presence, this being, but is so, it's kind of hard to describe, so large, and He's just everywhere. It's just everywhere. Wherever you go, you just feel this tremendous love and peace that you don't have here. You don't feel that here on Earth.
Yeah.
You only really feel it on the other side. So now there's no one specific place that you could go to see God. He's just everywhere.
That's really that. I like hearing that. I'm glad to know that. Now,
Yeah.
Let's see. How real did it feel there compared to here? Earth?
It feels much more real. It's almost as if the Earth is the illusionary world and the other side is real.
Yeah.
And here's something that I really had a hard time understanding at first. When I saw people on the other side, I thought to myself, okay, they can't have bodies like we do.
Mhm.
because it's supposed to be the spirit world, but they do. Their bodies are stronger than ours. I remember when I was on the other side in that building where we plan our lifetimes, my scrolls were on a table, on a marble table. And I remember actually touching that table, and it was solid. So somehow there's something different with the physics. There's something different whereby when you cross over and leave your body here on Earth, you cross over and you have a body there,
Yeah.
just like this one, but it doesn't have any organs. It doesn't have any lungs. You don't have to. You never get tired. You don't have to sleep over there. But your body is so perfect that it just doesn't get injured. It doesn't get hurt. So yeah, that's what I learned.
Okay. What has your family thought about your NDE since as the years have went by?
You know what? I have told my wife. I never actually have told my kids everything that happened, but my wife has been a huge supporter. She used to keep a dream journal when she was younger, and she used to get communication from her guides at night during her dreams. So if you ever want to learn how your guides talk to you, you can keep a dream journal at night, and you can actually hear your guides. You can learn from them from your dreams. But yeah, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Just how like what did they think about your NDE?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, my wife loves it. She gets so encouraged because one of her very best friends that she's ever had in her life is over there,
Okay.
and she can't wait until she gets to see her. But my family, especially my cousins, I'm in Colorado, and most of my family, except for my mom, are in California. That's where I'm originally from. So I've been able to talk to my cousins, my uncle, my aunts about the other side and about my experience. And it has given them a lot of hope that they know that people they have lost, they'll be with again. So I have been able to tell a lot of my family, and nobody has really doubted it.
Yeah.
They've all thought what I experienced was really real. And it's given them the encouragement to know that you're here to live your life, to try your best, to do your best, but that there's more and that life goes on forever, that we are eternal beings, that we never end. And that's the kind of hope that people leave from when they hear my death experience. And I'm just so lucky, I think, to have had happen what happened, that I can share this with people to help give people hope.
And I'm glad that you're coming on to tell your story, so that way people can get a understanding of everything that's after this lifetime.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So animals, you said that. Do you think animals choose the lives they want?
That I don't know. That I have no idea. All I know about the animals is that they survive death also, that they have souls too. And I saw them. I saw horses, I saw cats, dogs. I saw my two cats that I had growing up. They're all there. And it's funny, they keep them, it's like they're in these beautiful meadows and they play with each other until we come back to get them. And they're absolutely there. Animals are such an important part of our lives. They become family. And to think that when you lose a pet, that you've lost that pet forever, that's just a horrible thought.
Yeah.
But they go on. They survive just like we do. We had a cat, my cat that we had for 24 years. He died because he had cancer that was inoperable. And he died just about a year ago. And I know that when I get back to the other side, I'll be able to be with him again. And so will all of us. Yeah. All of us have had animals, even horses, or any animal that you've had that you loved is on the other side. They're all there. That's the real world. this world is just a temporary, illusory world where we come to learn in a very short lifetime. On the other side, that's our real home, where everybody is there, and that's where all of our animals are too.
Okay. Now, did you ever see anything weird or different looking wise, like humanoid? Like any weird
You know what?
Anything?
No, I didn't. Everybody I saw looked just like us.
Oh,
And there were a lot of people there. I had the very distinct impression on the other side when I was in that planetarium that when they showed the other planets, that's where people, or I don't know if you'd call them people, you would call them other beings, other entities, where they've had their own evolutionary travels, where they have developed, and they are beings. They don't look like us. Kind of like when people talk about aliens, UFOs, there are other entities that exist throughout the universe, and they don't look like us. But we can have incarnations. We can have a lifetime on that planet, and we would look like that.
yeah.
So there are other beings that they have legs and they have arms, but they don't look like us. They're what we would call alien life, and that's the kind of life that exists on other planets. From what I understood, Earth is the only planet that has what you would call a human being. Human beings occupy this planet.
Okay.
The other planets have other beings,
Yeah.
but they're just not human, if that makes sense.
Okay. That makes tons of sense. I'm so happy to have had you come on. You definitely answered all my questions. And yeah, John, I just thank you for coming on. And if you would like to go ahead and give the closing comments or any advice for other people that could have experienced a near-death experience, or just anything you want to give them for advice.
Sure. Anthony, I want to say, first of all, that I love being on your show. You're a great host. You had some great questions, and I'm really honored to be on your show as a guest. I really enjoyed it. If I had any advice or anything to say to your listeners, would just be that take heart. Don't give up. Fight your best fight. Keep the faith. Fight on with your life. There is so much that you can do to make a difference in the world. Encourage others. We're here to help as many people as we can because people struggle, and they need people like us who know about the other side to help them, to give them hope, and to give them a reason to get up out of bed every day, because there are a lot of hard things that happen here on this planet. Mm-hmm. And we're all here to help each other if we can, and mostly to encourage each other and to love each other. And if we can all do that, we will absolutely make a difference in the world, and we'll have a really successful life review, having accomplished everything we set out to accomplish when we came in. So that's what I would say to your listeners.
All right. Well, thank you, John, for that. And thank you, audience, for watching in and tuning in. So other than that, thank you, guys. It's been another episode of Real Supernatural Encounters, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.